בספורט ובעסקים אנחנו מאוד מאמינים שכדי להתקדם צעד אחד או אפילו כמה בקריירה צריך לצאת מאזור הנוחות. היום נצא יחד מאזור הנוחות ונערוך פודקאסט באנגלית יחד עם אורח מיוחד, אלכסנדר, אחד השחקנים הגדולים שדרכו בישראל, שאוטוטו לקראת פרישה. עבר מסע ארוך, הוא חווה וטעם שלל תרבויות, הוא נולד בטיוואן, עבר לארצות הברית ושיחק באוניברסיטת ווסט וירג'יניה. נבחר במקום השמיני של דראפט 2008, יחד עם דריק רוז וראסל ווסטברוק. לאחר מכן הגיע כפוטנציאל ענק למכבי תל אביב, עבר לאיטליה, שיחק בטורקיה והתגלגל עד לחולון, נהריה וראשון. היום שאחרי ממש מעבר לפינה, ואנחנו בזמן פציעות תרתי משמע. יספר לנו על התוכניות שלו ליום שאחרי, ויעניק לנו המון תובנות מעניינות על עולם הכדורסל, וממה שהוא חווה. שוט?
יאללה, בדור.
מתחילים. Good morning. Okay, in business and in life, I believe that in order to grow, you need to step out of your comfort zone. So today we are doing a podcast in English.
Yes.
And allow me to introduce one of the best players and most talented players in basketball ever played in Israel. Good morning, Alexander.
Good morning, guys.
Good morning.
Thanks for having me here.
What's up, champ?
Everything's great. No complaints. Life is good.
Really great to have you here. Look, you had quite a journey. You were born in Taiwan.
Correct. Yep.
You played in West Virginia, Italy, Besiktas.
Yep.
So many places.
Yeah.
What is your most significant insight from this journey?
Wow. Man, too much.
First question, boom.
I mean, too many insights to ever count in a lifetime. I've probably forgotten more about the basketball journey than I'll ever be able to talk about. But mostly just that, if you challenge yourself, then you get the right to have adventures in life. And I think my whole journey as a whole really could be summed up as just an adventure, man. Like non-stop adventure, 1 month after another, unexpected things, good things, bad things, good people, bad people. It was like, sometimes I think it was like being on a pirate ship, for like the first 20 years of my life. And it was just fun, man.
Amazing.
When you were selected in the NBA draft, did you ever think that you will have a role to so many places in the world, eventually to Holon, to Nahariya, here in Israel? Why did it happen, for your opinion?
Man, I didn't know what Holon was, like when I was in the NBA. I didn't know what Nahariya was, and I didn't know anything about basketball in the world. Definitely didn't know anything about basketball in Israel. So if you would have asked me when I was in the NBA, like what's going to happen in Israel, I would have told you, like, get out of my face. When you're in the NBA, you have like a sense of ego about you that if you go to the G League or if you go to Europe, then somehow you failed in basketball and in life. So at that time, this was never in my mind at all. But, after going through it, I have the complete opposite opinion, which is that, like, I'm so grateful to have had this experience, to be able to go to Israel, and not just because it was a good experience for life, but because, like, basketball-wise, you really couldn't pray for anything more than this. Like, to make money, going to work every day, lifting weights in the gym, and then playing basketball, like, you can't pray for anything more than that. And I've really just completely abandoned this idea that being in Europe is some step down from the NBA. Really, it's all just professional basketball, and for me, it's been a blessing.
Yeah,
I'm so happy about it.
Becoming global,
Yep, exactly. Like you asked, like, did I think about it when I was in the NBA? The answer is no. I had no idea. It was totally unexpected.
I see, but you start somewhere back then. In high school, in college, so you can share with us, your experience from the beginning, what you had, what was in your mind, how you build yourself to a career of basketball player. It's very interesting for people even here to know young players, how it's going on in the US, because here it's different.
Yes, of course. Yeah, I had a different journey than everybody in America because I didn't grow up in America. I grew up in China, and for me, the whole journey started when I was about 9 years old. And it started with a decision that I made where I said, look, I'm going to go to the NBA. I don't really know why I made the decision. I was a stupid kid, and kids make dumb decisions. But for me, luckily, it was one that was a good one, and I stuck to it.
China and Taiwan, it's not a basketball nation.
No, it's not. Yeah.
Even though back then, Yao Ming was one of the greatest players in China.
That's right.
So
Good
That's
point.
right. That's right. You're right. So when I was a kid, Yao Ming was just starting to come up when I was leaving high school, and so I didn't really have anybody to play with or to model my game after, to learn from when I was growing up in China. So for me, it was just all about like having faith and dreaming. And that's a cliche that people tell kids a lot, like you got to believe in yourself and have faith. But for me, that was really like the cornerstone of everything that I did. It was to go home every day and tell myself what my goals were and to believe in myself. And nobody from that region of the world had ever gone to the NBA. In fact, when I went to the NBA, I was the first player ever born in Taiwan to go to the NBA. So for me, the journey was like an uncharted one. It wasn't like a path that had already been grooved. It was a totally new path. And every new level, every new school, every new city, I had to make decisions. For young kids that are trying to navigate that path, if it's new or if it's grooved, it's all about like keeping yourself focused. And like for me, when people were trying to tell me, make this decision, go to this school, do this, do that, for me, it was all about what's going to get me to the NBA. Because when I went to college, there were like a dozen different colleges I could have chosen from. And I asked every coach one thing. I said, if I come to your school, am I going to the NBA? Plain and simple. I don't want to hear nothing else. And most of them had to tell me. Exactly. Most of them had to tell me, like, Joe, it's not realistic because our school doesn't produce NBA players, or because you're not an NBA player. And you have to stick to your guns, and I had to tell them.
So it was affect your decision?
Oh, it was my only decision. My only decision for my whole life, every single day when I woke up, was what is going to get me to the NBA.
Wow.
That was it. The friends that I had, the places I moved to, the schools, the cities, the meals that I ate, the workouts, everything.
Did you write yourself a goal, like in steps, a plan,
Yep.
how to do it?
Yeah. My whole life was a plan of going to the NBA. So basically, for the beginning of every single week, starting from the age of about 10 years old, I would write down my workouts for the week on a piece of paper, and I would keep it in my wallet. I would wrap it in tape so that the rain didn't destroy it. Every week.
Wow.
And I would write it down,
That's
and it would be not just like basketball, but things I had to do to become athletic, like jumping, sprinting, working, lifting exercises. And it was all like trying to hit my hours. Like, how many hours can you play in the gym? How many hours can you play one-on-one? Can you play 5-on-5?
I tell you something about this. Today I'm a mental counselor, and it's amazing what you're saying, because today to ask from children to write down something, I wish that one in 3 months they will write down, or half a year they will write down something. And you say to me that every week you did
Since the age
targets.
of 9
Wow,
years
it's
old,
amazing.
it's crazy.
Well, I learned it from my brother. So my older brother was 3 years older than me, and he taught me how to do this, how to write it down and make a plan. And what I learned early was that if you don't write it down, you start to betray yourself, which means like you make plans and then you don't follow through with them. And then I started to get really sick of this, because it means like you lose trust in yourself. You say, I'm going to do something, and then you don't do it. And you would lose trust in yourself, and that made me feel really sick. So I found that the only way to keep trust in my word was to write it down and to look at it every single day, like 5, 6, 7 times a day. And for me, that's the only way that you follow through on something. So you have to write it down.
I tell you something, because they say in the NBA that Michael Jordan found these challenges under the carpet, you know.
Yep.
And what you did actually is challenge yourself every week. So it's great.
Yeah,
it's
that's
great.
right. Actually, that's perfect. Like what I tell kids when they ask me, like, what's the one thing in basketball to like get me somewhere? I tell them, there's no one thing, but if there is, then it's to challenge yourself every single day. That's it. You have to challenge yourself every single day. Like for me, it was like every hour. Like, what can I do this hour to get me closer to the NBA just by like this much? And I knew that if I could do that every hour of every day, then after 10 years, like, who's going to stop me? Who's going to stop me in 10 years if every hour I'm challenging myself? So that's kind of how I approached it.
It's amazing. Okay. Wow, amazing insight,
If I saw it to my basketball player, and for every player, but for my basketball player to hear you, it's amazing. It's give them a lot of thinking what they are going to do right now with this thing.
Good, I'm happy to hear that. Man.
Yeah, great.
So where is your, let's say, your first love story began?
With basketball?
Yeah.
Wow, I think it began with my dad, because he was always telling stories about when he was a player in high school. And like,
He was the half Taiwanese?
no, my father was American. Like, we grew up in Taiwan because he worked over there, but he was American.
Okay.
But yeah, he like instilled this love of basketball with me and my older brothers. I just remember watching them play, and they were so much older and bigger than me that it was almost like watching somebody dance, and I was really like taken by it. You know, watching how athletic they were and how they moved, and I remember my brothers starting to like being able to dunk on small rims, and it's all that I wanted. So that's really where it started for me. Yeah.
Amazing. Okay, so you were picked in the 8th place in the NBA draft alongside with, Russell Westbrook, Derrick Rose, Danilo Gallinari from Italy.
Yep.
So I would like to hear from you. Maybe you can help us and tell us some juicy scoops from that time.
Like everyone always wants like juicy scoops on what happened, but the real juicy stuff is how you live normal life with those names around you. It means like you go to the elevator in your hotel and Derrick Rose is in the elevator, or you go to breakfast and Kevin Love and Russell Westbrook are sitting next to you, or you go to work out tonight to shoot jump shots and you know all the players from the lottery are there like shooting free throws.
But back then they were like good, that you know them as a good players, or
yes.
oh
yeah, of
okay.
course. So back then they were like the top players in the country, like you know national championship players. You know they've been touted since they were like 8 years old. In college and in high school too. They were all guys that were like number 1, number 2 ranked in the country. So
because someone like Steph Curry, he built himself. He was not like from the beginning, and he built himself and.
Yeah, he's a total anomaly. But these other guys were like big names, these big lottery guys. In fact, in my lottery draft, I was probably one of only 2 guys that were not big names. So for me, like it was quite an experience just to be like shoulder to shoulder with them and feel like, wow, this is the number 1 player in the draft, and I'm here. Nobody even knows who I am. So it was pretty amazing for me.
And for one that motivate himself, see them, and then check yourself, say, what's going on? Did I did the right things to bring myself to the same level, or what I need to do to be in their level? It's a question that you had back then?
Like at the time, I had become a different person because like when you go from college to the professional ranks, like you go through a transformation in your mind and in your body where you change like emotionally. Like temperamentally, you wake up every day thinking different thoughts than you thought as an amateur. Like as an amateur, you're thinking like, hey, can I get better? Like, am I good as these guys? But when you move into being like a professional, you just have different thoughts of like, nobody's going to stop me. Nobody's going to stand in my way. And I don't care who you are and how good you are or what you do well. I have things I can do better. And you know, whatever you throw at me, I can throw it back. So at the time, also, you have a level of like edge and anger to you that you're around these guys. You're not wondering, are they better than me? You're wondering, when can I get in the gym so I can kill them? And so at the time, that's really all I was thinking was like, okay, I'm shoulder to shoulder with these number 1 picks, number 1 ranked in the nation, but let's get in the gym so I can prove that you guys can't play with me.
It's amazing what you're saying, because most of the young player, when they face that things, they actually going down.
Yep.
You know, because am I good? You know, so it's amazing. Your motivation was absolutely amazing.
Well, I can confess something, which is that you know that feeling you can lose it. And I can say that for me, I did lose it at one point. And so it's not like you just get to a point mentally and you're there. Like you have to maintain it. And you know, if I could go back and correct myself, it would be that point that I lost that feeling, I need to find a way to get it back. So, you know, it's not like, you know, you
Where was it?
I remember exactly when it happened. It was like a loss of confidence that happened in practice one day when some pros were talking to me in a certain way and, you know, coming at me a certain way, and I didn't respond because for whatever reason I was in a bad place. And, you know, that happens to young players too, like you just said, you know, and in professional life it happens and you have to figure out how to come back. And so it's not something that you always have. It's something you have to like maintain and sharpen.
You know, Derrick Rose, we talked about Derrick Rose, but there's something really similar between you and Derrick Rose. You've suffered some injuries.
Yeah, that's right.
Do you think that those injuries maybe cut or half of your potential to do something bigger in your career?
I think the first thing I'll say is that like there's no such thing as a professional that's healthy. Like any pro you see on the court, he's hurting. And he's not just having like some small thing, he's injured, everybody, all the time. So like nobody gets to complain about injuries. Like players who complain about injuries, they're not professionals. They don't ever get to play professional, because if I complain about injuries, I would never have played in college, never have played in prep school or the pros ever. So like to say my career is cut short by injuries is not fair, because everybody's was. And I could name like maybe 90% of players who have a high talent, you never know their name because of injuries. All I can tell you is that, like, you know, I sat out for 3 years when I was 20 because I broke my leg. In my 20s, I mean, which is like my prime years. And if I didn't break my leg, I think things would have been very different for me. You know, to sit out 3 years from I was 24 until 27, it's difficult. But
that's why I'm asking that, you know. You had some rough times.
Yeah, it's like a legitimate question.
You think it's regard how you build yourself, for example, regarding, you know, stretch and you know, keeping your body. You think even if you do better work on that, it was keeping your you know, your health, your...
Yeah, like to be a true professional, you have to know how to rehab. So being good on the court, and then being a good person off the court, and then knowing how to build relationships, and knowing how to take care of your body. And like players, when they're young, they think, okay, I'll learn how to take care of my body later. Or they think it's like, okay, I stretch for 5 minutes before practice. That's not it. Like learning how to take care of your body is like a whole profession. You could go to college to study it. And I wish I'd studied it earlier. Like if I was a young player now, it's one of the main things I would focus on. Like your skills on the court, who you are off the court, and how to take care of your body. Like that's what I wish I would have worked on.
You're kicking me to the next question because I was a professional soccer player back in the days.
There you go.
And
the national Israeli team.
There you go. So you know.
Yeah, I played in biggest team in Israel, and I also played in Spain, in Portugal. So I had a nice career, but you know, sometimes in our career we have regrets. And my two questions for you, if there are, now that you're looking back, are any regrets regard the things you didn't did that bringing you to the next level, you know, even bigger level than you were? And the second thing is regards, you know, movement between team to team, country to country. Did you regrets about any one of them, you know?
Man, my career is full of regrets, like infinite regrets. And I think that's a part of like loving something. Like when you love something so deeply and it's meaningful to you, you can't help but like think about it all the time. And when you think about something all the time, you think, well, what if I would have done this different or done that different? You can't really be at peace with it. I think that peace will come with time, but until then, you're going to be totally full of, should I have gone this way? Should I have gone that way? So like every day I think of things I could have done better. But to me, that's evidence that you're growing and understanding the profession more. So, you know, if today I can look back and say, oh, I should have done this, I get it now. You know, to me, it sucks to regret it, but it's also evidence that I'm growing and learning, which it's unfortunate that I couldn't have applied it for myself, but what I'm grateful for is that I can apply it for somebody else. You know, like I can look at someone else's career now and say, hey man, don't do that. Trust me, don't do it. So like most of the things I know about basketball right now, they're not from the success that I've had, they're from all the mistakes that I've made. And that's okay, I can live with that. You know, I'm happy that I came, I showed up, you know, I put myself out there and took risks, and I made mistakes, and that's okay. Like, I'm grateful for the regrets that I have.
Look, you had a great journey.
Yeah.
And your experience everybody can learn from you because you had a great experiences and a long journey through a lot of countries. So you can say how is it to play in Israel and Turkey and also in Italy. That's amazing. And in the beginning of the episode, I said that I'm going to step out of my comfort zone. It seems like you did it each and every year.
Man, look, I'm going to be real honest with you. I'm not a basketball player. I'm not. Like, I know that's shocking to hear because it's all that I've done my whole life, but I'm not a basketball player. Like my personality, my temperament, everything that you see about me, like on TV, on the court, like that's not who I am. Everything, all of that is I had to create it. I had to fashion it, and it was like being an actor. And it was not in my comfort zone. But every month that I practiced it, it became more of who I am, but all of it was always out of my comfort zone.
So you say there are talented players like Michael Jordan, LeBron James that bring to the world themselves, and the talent was there. And Joe actually built a career with, you know, only, wanted to be there?
I don't think I would say that I'm like over here and they're over here. I think there's a spectrum, and like everyone falls on the spectrum somewhere. Like, you know, you come as who you are naturally, and for every like shortcoming that you have to give something that's not so natural. And so my guess is that most professional players that you meet, they had to create themselves in like big ways that nobody appreciates. Like for me, those ways came at nighttime when I would talk to myself and tell myself, Joe, you got to act this way. You got to talk this way. Like you got to come into practice tomorrow and be this way. Like not like skills, but like the way that you act. And my guess is that if you asked all professional athletes that, probably you feel the same way. You'd be like, yeah, that's what I did every night. Every night I sat and said, you gotta be tougher tomorrow. Like you gotta do this tomorrow in the way that you behave. And that's like using yourself to change yourself and growing, so yeah.
You've played in the highest level, okay? Yeah. And if you're taking yourself and moving forward to the next level, to the next step in your career, so what tools are you bringing to the next career?
I mean, the main one is balance. You know, maybe there's like a million different tools that you have, but in all of them you have to have balance. Because like in basketball, what I learned is that as an amateur, you're always prescribed something to fix your problems. But as a professional, you start to learn whatever thing you use to fix your problems, it hurts you also in some way. So you have to find the opposite and then you have to balance them. So like, I'll give you an example. Okay. So in basketball, you're always taught be hard, like be a killer. But as a professional, you learn that being a killer damages your relationships with the people that you work with. So you have to learn how to go in the middle and balance that. That's one example. And so like that's something I'll take with me to all my next professions, is you need to be able to wake up in the morning and say, okay, today I'm a killer, but I can't let it damage my relationships with people. So that's one specific thing that I'll take everywhere that I go, but just the fundamental of balance is something more that applies to everything that I'll always take with me. Like, and I learned that in basketball, because you can't have any success in basketball for a long time without balance.
You can take it also to business. You need to be focused and to be a killer each and every day, but you need to be cool and to be in a good relationship with your surroundings. Correct. Because if...
As a mental counselor, I say to you that we call it balance your ego. You know, yeah, it's great in business.
No, it helps. It helps.
Yeah, great. Joe, can you share with us your biggest and also your lowest moment mentally, physically, maybe a moment in your career when you learned something about yourself, about life, you know?
Sure, I could name a million, but like relevant to us because we're in Israel. Like one of my favorite, biggest moments in my life was alone. It was my favorite year of basketball. I think it was 2018, 19 with Guy Panini.
No, not long time ago.
No, it was not too long.
Before the corona.
No, it was 4 or 5 years ago. I thought the staff there put together what now in retrospect was maybe the greatest team in Israeli history. That's my opinion. It was a great team. We had a lot of fun, but mostly the attitude that we came with every day was like, you know, we're here to not be intimidated by anybody. We're here to kill, and we're here to do it with style. And the fact that like we were so successful in the league and also went to the championship, and you know, I thought that I had a good year despite having come off a year with Maccabi where people thought, you know, this guy's finished or he's nobody. And then, you know, me and Guy Panini and Glenn Rice and other guys, like we bounced back, and man, it was just such a rewarding season for me. I had such a fun time, and I'll tell you, mostly because the management was behind us the whole time. You know, like fans, they don't appreciate the fact that like basketball players, we come to work. And the management is like the culture and the work environment. And the management in Holon created such a positive environment for us that whether we were winning or down for a little bit, they made us feel like we were appreciated, and they tried to help us grow. Like just everything together made it such a rewarding experience. But then the opposite side of the question is, you know, a downtime for me. This is difficult to admit, but I went through a very long period where like people were saying that I failed in the NBA. And that, you know, I was a bust in the draft, and like that word is like a very cutting word, like it hits you very deep. And once you're labeled with that word, it never goes away. Like there's no way you can talk people out of saying it about you. And so I knew that it was stuck with me forever, and it probably hurt me for like 4 or 5 years. And it was a very like, it painted everything that I did with like this black paint to destroy it. And it's difficult because in basketball, every day you're struggling to put in the maximum work every single day, and to feel like all that work is painted with this label that you're a failure in the NBA was very, very, very difficult for me. It took a long time to heal.
The average career in the NBA is actually, you know how much is it?
Of course, it's like less than 3 years. I think it's 2. Yeah,
between 2 to 3 years.
It's something that, sorry to interrupt you. It's something that
fans,
they don't really...
That's a conversation, man.
The fans, they don't really appreciate and understand like the humanity of professional basketball. You know, I remember one time I was sitting on a couch with my brothers and their friends, and we were watching a baseball game. And there was a player who was injured for a long time, and I remember them yelling at the TV like, this loser, he's always injured. Like, get him off the team. Who is this guy? And meanwhile, I was in like my second year of having my leg broken. I hadn't played basketball in 2 years.
And you're sitting next.
And I was sitting next to them, and they're not aware because they're fans. And the guy who was the professional baseball player, he was probably the same age as me, gone through the hell that I had gone through, and like his whole life and dreams were wrapped up in the sport, and he can't play. And meanwhile, this is how people talk about them.
Did you say something?
I didn't say anything because they could never understand it. It's not like I was mad at them. It's nothing like that. It's just there's a disconnect between the way that players engage with the game and the way that fans do. And the humanity of it is lost sometimes. People don't realize what we have invested in all of this, and the fact that we only have 10 years to do it, and after that it's gone forever. And so we lose 1 year to injury, 2 years to injury. It's like losing 10 years.
Yeah.
So,
Joe, how long you been in college?
I was in college 3 years. So
3 years. I tell you why I'm asking, because sometimes I'm love to sit in front of the TV and see the playoff games in the college. It looks like amazing, powerful thing.
Yes.
How far you get in the college?
Yeah, so we went to the top. Like we went in the Big East tournament when I was there. We were the best conference in the country. And then we went to the Big East semifinals, and then we went to the NCAA tournament. We were a favored team, a top seed, and we went to the Sweet 16. And so I did that 2 times. And like college basketball, it's like some of the height of my experience. The stadiums are like rumbling, like crazy rumbling. But even bigger than the stadiums is the press and media coverage, because the NCAA tournament is the biggest like media event in basketball, next to maybe the NBA finals. So like, you think these players are playing in the NBA finals, but if you play in the college championships, it's the same from a media standpoint. Everybody's watching you, everybody knows your name, everybody's talking about you. And then you go home to your school and you're like a god. So, you have to stay humble, because you're not a god, because you're a little kid.
Yeah.
You're a skinny kid looking in the mirror like, I'm a bum. But they're treating you this way, and it's special.
I think that there are moments that you want to go back there and to see how you feel it again. It's a moment that never come back. In college.
I'll be honest with you. I never want to go back. I don't miss it. I'll be real honest with you.
I'm just like you. I never go back.
Yeah,
I go forward.
No, we never go back, but the feeling to be there.
What I mean is, I didn't enjoy my time in college, even though that was exciting. I didn't enjoy it because we were working so hard that like I really thought I was going to die in college. Like that's what I thought. Like they were working us so incredibly hard that every day before the game I was thinking like I can't walk. Like how am I going to play? I can't walk.
Wow.
And so I was just dying to leave. And so when the chance came to come to the NBA, I was like, bye, I'm out.
Look, it's a business, sports and business podcast, okay? And I'd love to hear from you, okay, about the legal and financial aspects of your life as a pro athlete, okay?
Sure.
So what was your financial plan all over the years,
Yep. So I had like not the most juvenile financial plan, but also not the most sophisticated. I was right in the middle. So mine was to just save my money, meaning don't lose it. Put it somewhere very safe and don't lose it. Now in retrospect, I understand that maybe the most juvenile is to spend it, and then the next is to save it, but the most sophisticated would have been to invest it. So what I wish at the time is that the first thing I did when I got into the NBA, signed this huge contract. By the way, it was my first job ever. It was the first time I ever took a paycheck was in the NBA. First thing I should have done was hire an assistant and a financial manager, and then hired somebody to live with me to teach me about investing. Because it took me about 10 years until I made my first investments. And if I would have done that, I would have grown my money exponentially by then until now. Nobody makes money when they're 20 years old. So it was a real blessing that I totally missed. But I can't fault myself for it. I was a 20-year-old kid. What did I know? But I'm happy that I saved my money. Like I didn't spend anything. I didn't even buy a car my first 2 years in the NBA. All my teammates were driving these Ferraris and Lamborghinis and crazy cars, and I was driving the same car I had in college. Like the brakes were squeaky, so I wasn't spending any money. But I also wasn't investing, and that's a problem. So.
Yeah, money in the bank is like doing nothing. Sorry. Yeah.
No, you're right, man. Like now I see it as I want to send my dollars out into the world, like little like an army, and I want them to bring me back more dollars. Like that's what you want.
You move from places to places, and did you have someone that guided you back then? Someone that you trust, someone that advised you what things to do or what to do? Looking forward.
No.
Professionally and also financially.
No, look, I did in my life. I had opportunities for it, but I was too arrogant of a kid. Like in your 20s, you're a kid. Like,
Parents?
My parents tried. My father tried. My mom tried. Everybody tried, but I wasn't listening to anybody. And like, if I could go back now, maybe the one thing I would change is that I would have been more open to listening to people, because people tried to help me, but I wasn't receptive to it.
What can you say to our listeners, because there's some professional pro athletes, who are listening to that?
Sure, like one of the biggest mistakes I ever made was not creating an off-court team. Off-court team, that's what I should have created. It would have opened all of my time and hours and focus to focus on what I'm good at. You know, like when you start a business, what do? You outsource everything and delegate everything that you're not an expert in. You want guys in your room that are smarter than you and better than you. And so like as the CEO of my basketball company, I should have been delegating the finances to a CFO. I should have been delegating the operating, everything with the operating to some manager. I should have been delegating a secretary, everything. And the fact that I didn't have an off-court team meant I was trying to handle everything by myself, including developing as an NBA player. It's ridiculous to think about. It's the first thing I should have done when I signed my NBA contract.
Yeah, nobody can, sorry to interrupt you, Ilan, but nobody can be a one-man show.
That's right, yeah.
You know,
I see Joe answers to us, and I don't know if he go that way, but he have the passion to guide people, young players, because his mistake, you know. I see it in your answers, it's amazing. I don't know if you go to this place. I'm doing it today.
Okay.
But you have a lot to give young people. You know, if you have the chance to do it, you know, it will come from you 100%.
Yeah, it seems like it fits you.
I think like when you're hurt by something, like genuinely, you love it, then you don't have a choice except to be empathetic towards other people that love it. Like when I see a kid that loves the game, like I can't help but say like let me talk to you. Let's help. You know.
You know, through the years, we've seen countless of stories like Allen Iverson, Anthony Walker, who got bankrupt. After their career.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
It's like easier than anybody can understand. Like, you know, when I tell you I didn't spend money, I mean relative to NBA players. Like I spent money. And like it wasn't until 10 years after spending money that I for the first time looked at my expenses reports and was like, how is this going out? Like, because when you're in the NBA, like just think everything that you buy in the day, just double it or triple it. You know, you buy a lamp for $50, you're a normal person. You're in the NBA, you buy a lamp for $500. Shoes, $50, you buy it for $1,000 in the NBA. And it's normal because everyone around you is doing it. You know, you don't pay any attention. I can remember having checks like scattered around my apartment for $3,000, $4,000, $5,000. And I remember my girlfriend at the time like being like, Joe, what is this? And I'd just throw it and say, who cares? And she, Joe, this is a check for $3,000. Who cares? And like, the environment of the NBA is not Earth. Like you live in outer space. Like what I just told you, that story, it seems crazy to me now. It's like insane to me now. But at the time, if I told that story in the locker room, some of my teammates would have been like, so, who cares?
I did it in millions.
I have a better story. Like, this is nothing. So, like, your gauge of reality gets, like, twisted in your head, and your accounting for numbers gets changed. And you have to have somebody with, like, a strong passion for helping you to kind of grab you by the neck and go, now you listen to me. Like, I remember Andrew Bogut. You guys know Andrew Bogut. I remember him sitting
in Golden State.
Everywhere. I remember him sitting in the locker room next to me. He was my teammate, and you know, you order hot dogs before every game. So one of my teammates ordered a hot dog from the busboy. He said, go get it for me. I gave him $100. Hot dogs, you know, $5. He says, keep the change. Of course, it's nothing. And nobody thinks it's anything. But Andrew Bogut says, what the hell's the matter with you? He said, you have no respect for money. And I'm thinking, Andrew, you make that money literally in 1 minute. You make that money. It's a ball boy. Give him the $100, no problem. And Andrew says to me, yeah, well, this is why I'm still going to be living this life when I'm 60 years old. And you guys aren't. That's why.
Love it.
You know, so some guys, they have their head on. And most guys, they don't. And that's why they go broke and they lose their money. You know, they're tipping guys $100. They're tipping guys $1,000. They're taking $3,000 checks and throwing it away. And they do it
Invite all the family and friends.
Oh, yeah, they do it at a much bigger scale than that. And they do it for 5 years, 10 years. And the numbers add up. And before they finally look at their bank account, they don't have the ability to make any more money. So it's hopeless at that point.
Yeah.
Listen, future to come. You have a lot of experience. You've been in countries. You play in a lot of teams. And, you know, my question is, you going to be a businessman or you are going to stay in basketball? You know, there are some players like Anthony Parker or Sean James, you know, that bring their career to, you know, different level and know a lot of countries and cities and know how to manage it to the next life, you know. Right. So what are you preparing to do? Share with us, with the audience.
Well, like right now it's set in stone for me already because like even before I stopped like playing consistently, I've already started some businesses because like my real passion is just to wake up and put in as many hours as I can during the day towards something productive. Because I feel like if you're productive, then you grow as a person. And like with business, you can be productive 24 hours a day. Like it never sleeps. There's always something to do. But with basketball, like maximum, you can put in like 6 hours a day before your body starts to shut down. And at this age, I could put in half of that. So like for me, it's a natural transition that my energy wants to be productive. So I can't keep doing it in basketball. And if I'm coaching, same thing. What am I going to coach 24 hours a day? So I have now started to have like a passion for businesses, and I think that's just going to continue to grow, and my like involvement in basketball is going to sort of die out. Like, I mean, just this past month, I started getting involved in like a medical care business for chiropractors in America. I started getting involved in like a spa jacuzzi business here in Israel, actually. I've been doing real estate for a number of years. So like, you know, nothing on a large scale, but I'm just now getting started. I mean, I've been playing basketball my whole life.
What is your role over there?
Mostly my role is like a consultant for people and an investor, obviously, because I have the funds to contribute to people that I believe in or have dreams. And you know, I like to be a creative and strategic manager of these businesses. Like I like to have the vision and then let them use their labor hours to man the day-to-day operations. I feel like, look, what I feel like is missing for most people is the courage to take risks. And I feel like for me, because of my involvement in basketball, what I've seen is that the biggest risk in life is not taking risks. And so what I like is when people call me up and say, look, I got this idea for this business. I've been sitting on it for 5 years. I don't know if I should do it. Everybody tells me no. I tell them, do it. Let's get it started. Let's go.
You think today Joe is taking more risk easier than before?
I think I take them with like a lighter heart and with more humor. Whereas in the past, I would approach all my risks with like this gritty, like grind my teeth, let's go, let's get it. Like I'm going to attack this. But now I understand that like taking risks is a fun part of life. So I approach them with more humor. And what I find is that you get better results out of it when you approach it with a sense of humor. And I think you help people when you're on the outside and you add humor to their risk and make it like a playful experience for them. Because like when they're inside of it, they have that like this is dangerous kind of thing. And so I like providing the opposite emotional like counterbalance to that, where I approach it with a fun energy and they approach it with like a tense energy. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Humor, you know, it's good always. It's always good.
Yeah, it's good. It's not always easy, but it's good.
Great.
You know, we talked about West Virginia. I'm going back a little bit, but there's a wind of change here in Israel, and there's a lot of players who are moving and doing a relocation to the US and playing for the colleges. What do you think about that? Do you have a recommendation for them? What to do? How to do it?
Like every player's journey is different. Like I can't say for anybody specific, but look, I actually have always favored the idea of playing professional as early as you can. Like I think I was hamstrung by playing in college for 3 years. Like first of all, you don't make any money, and also you don't play against men. Like there's a difference between playing against amateurs and playing against men. Even if college basketball in America is like the biggest stage, you're not playing against men. Like, you know, the young players when I'm in Nahariya or when I'm in Holon, the young players come in and play against me. I'm 28 years old, I played in the NBA, and I'm in there to kill you in practice. And I'm going to hit you and you're going to feel it for 5 days. But when you're in college, you maybe have one guy like that on your team in 4 years, maybe one. But in Holon, you have 5 guys like that coming at you every day. So, like, the college experience in America, if you can do it, is a valuable one. But I'm going to be real. Like, my personal opinion is, like, if you can play professional basketball, you got to do it.
Okay.
If you're 18, 19, that's what I would do. I wish I did that.
Okay, amazing.
You think if you were guided and you get that guiding for yourself, Joe become a better player?
I mean, there's no question in my mind. Like, I don't think I even touched like 10% of my talent. Like,
Wow.
like, look.
This is a tough one to say, you know. This
Hey
is
man,
like,
these are like truths that you got to come to peace with, or else you're going to be lying to yourself for the rest of your life. Like, listen, I came into contact in my career with some of the most intelligent and best possible relationships I could have had, and I wasted all of them. Like people that took me aside in the gym and said, Joe, let me teach you this, and I said, like, get out of here. And I stayed in the gym and worked. You know, I love to work. But I didn't like to listen. And so if I could have like taken instruction from people, I think I could have been 10 times, 100 times better. Like that's the truth. It's okay to say that. It's okay to reflect on that.
Joe is not hiding from anything. I love it, you know.
That's true, you know. What can I say?
Well, every episode we are asking our guests, you know, to provide us tips, okay? 3 tips and insight from their own career, how to manage a pro athlete's career.
Mm-hmm.
So
Wow.
please share with us something.
Wow. Okay.
You have 100 tips, you know.
Yeah.
You need to pick 3 from the 100.
All right, so I'd say one of the most important ones for every player that I talk to is to understand that you're the CEO of a business now and to stop delegating all of your responsibilities to your agent. Like there's this dichotomy in the relationship that young players think they need to establish with their agent, where they're down here and their agent's in charge of them. You need to understand, you have to, 100% have to, become an authority on your career and know more about it. Know more about what needs to happen than your agent. You can't be somebody who's calling your agent like they're your parent, they're your father. Hey, tell me what to do. I'm not sure what to do. No. You can do that for 1 year, but you need to go through the learning process to figure out how to do it. Because as much as your agent can love you and want good things for you, they're never going to have your priorities as their number one priority.
You need
That's
to be
just a reality.
the CEO.
You need to be the CEO, plain and simple. And you need to go through that process with yourself so that you can change the relationship with your agent. So that's one. And
Love
then,
it.
wow, you know, like I said, every player's journey is different. But I think universally, the thing that helps, I'd say, every player is to stop looking at professional sports as a game of politics. It's like a bad downward spiral that destroys players, is that they get into the professional ranks and they start to see, oh, this guy's getting favorable treatment. He's getting that contract, but he's not as good as me. And so they start to think it's a political game. And it's a bad place to go down, because maybe there are some favoritisms, but it doesn't help you to think this way. And so what I always try to tell guys is, you come to work and you work without complaining. And you don't think about the politics and this and that. If you want to develop relationships to try to help yourself, you do that. But you don't look at other players and think they won some political game to get minutes. Because first and foremost, fundamentally, it's not true. The best players get the best jobs eventually. Maybe not today, maybe not this month, maybe not in 1 year, but over 5 years, that's the truth. So you're never going to be able to look at your career and say, oh, I got screwed because of politics. So that's the second one, is stop complaining. That's a big one. And then a third one, I'm going to have to think about this one. A very important
Something
one.
from your own journey, maybe?
Yeah, definitely. So, look, there's a lot of cultures that you can dive into in the professional ranks. Cultures meaning the social groups that you run in, and some of them are very bad, and some of them are very good. And you can accidentally fall into some and think that that culture is the culture of all professional sports, but it's not. Like, look, when I went to the Milwaukee Bucks in the NBA, I got immersed in a culture with a few guys who, you know, they talk a certain way, they think about certain things, they complain at some level, they work at some level, and I thought, this is professional sports, but it's not. Because you can go to another team and find guys that think different, they work different, they don't complain, they do, and you need to chase and seek out the best possible culture and the best possible people, and trust me, they're out there. Like in professional sports, you can find the absolute top culture people in the whole world, and they're at your fingertips. You pull out your phone, you can call anybody. Say, hey, I'm a professional, anybody will talk to you. So you need to look at the world that you're in and analyze it and say, are these guys really working at the top level in professional sports? Are these guys really coming to work with the right attitude at the top level? And assess the culture. And most of the time, the answer is going to be no. You need to not look at the guys on your team. You need to look at all of professional sports and say, where can I find the best guys? And start to talk to them. Start to make them part of like your daily routine. Hey, let's talk. Hey, let's talk.
And learn from them.
Learn from them. Hey, let's talk. Find the best culture, and over 2, 3, 4 years, you're going to then become one of those guys.
You can see right now the Golden State Warriors, the culture.
Yeah, it's all about culture.
Kaspi shares with everybody in his own podcast how good is the amazing the Golden State culture.
That's right. I was at Golden State, so I went to training camp with them for 2
in the G
years.
League, yeah?
I was at training camp with the main team for 2 years, then I was in the G League for 3 years.
Yeah.
You know, their culture is incredible, and you can feel it. Like you can taste the culture in the air when you get there. Like the way people conduct themselves, the way they greet you, the way they work, and not necessarily that they work harder, but the way that they work, like the flavor of how they work. Because sometimes easier is better. And in Golden State, I sensed like the best balance of working effective and working easy and efficient. It was a great place, great culture.
Okay, look, our podcast is called the 90 Minute, okay, because, you know, we are still on the court, but in another minute we're going to our next level, in our next step in our career.
Okay.
So I'm going to ask you, me and Ilan, some quick fire questions.
Yalla.
You're gonna give us some quick fire answers.
Okay, tough.
Okay.
I like his yalla.
Yalla, yeah. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Yeah.
Shoot, okay. So who is the best player you've ever been up against?
Kobe Bryant.
Kobe Bryant, okay. Your best ever basket?
I scored against Kobe Bryant.
The Mamba mentality. Okay, your favorite player when you were a kid?
Michael Jordan.
Your first tattoo?
My first tattoo was like a skeleton on my arm.
Skeleton, okay. Did you keep in touch with a member of the 2008 draft?
Yes, of course.
Who?
A lot of them, actually. Anthony Randolph, Luke Bamute, who was my teammate. Yeah, a lot of the guys. We talked every now and then. Costa Kufus, yeah.
Amazing. Okay, my last question. Who is your best friend from the locker room?
Probably one of my teammates from prep school. His name's Sam Young. So he ended up playing in the NBA, played for the Pacers. Had a good career.
What do you think on Danny Avdia?
Man, I saw Danny Avdia play, I think, like 2 years ago, maybe it was 3. I was so incredibly impressed with who he was as a person. Like, you can smell the way somebody conducts himself on the court, like a true leader of men. And I couldn't get enough of Danny. I think I talked about him to everybody that I saw for like the next 3 days. I said, this guy's different. Like, you could see guys with skills all day, but Danny, man, he's like
his mentality.
He's a man.
He's rough.
Yeah.
He's a man. He's a leader, you know?
Yeah. Your favorite thing about Israel?
My favorite thing about Israel, it's so small. I love it. I love it so small. Yeah.
Hummus or hamburger or Chinese food?
Yeah, hamburger.
Hamburger. Wow. What was the best crowd you ever played for?
Hulon.
Hulon.
Mm-hmm.
What do you prefer to watch? NBA, EuroLeague, or Netflix?
EuroLeague.
EuroLeague.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Okay. Who is Joe Alexander?
He's trying to figure that out too.
Okay. Joe, it was great, really. We learned a lot from you. You have a really amazing career, amazing stories. I was really
impressed, yeah.
Impressed.
Thanks, guys. Pleasure was mine, man. Really, it was my pleasure.
I think this podcast should shown to a lot of young players because they can learn a lot from you.
Good, man. That makes me feel good. Really, that makes me happy.
We appreciate it a lot.
No, I appreciate
having
you guys.
here. You're amazing.
Guys, really, this was like such a pleasure. Thank you.
Great.